Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Word with Ty Brownlow. I am your host, Ty Brownlow, and remember, no one is worthless. No story is worthless. Today, ladies and gentlemen, I got a very special guest for you. Give you a couple of words about my guest. Knowledgeable, entrepreneur, advocate, supporter. Please put your hands together for Mr. Jhny Wzdm.
Hey.
What's going on?
How's it going?
Oh man, it is going. Thank you for being here, first and foremost. I really thank you for being a guest on the show today. I really like some of the things we're going to talk about today. And if you don't mind, let's just get right into it.
Absolutely. I really appreciate you having me.
All right. No problem at all. Now, you have been, a music executive, 15 plus years in the industry, okay? But you're also advocating for mental health within the music industry at this time. Why is this very important to you?
It's really important in general as well as personally to me, because I feel like there's not enough talk about the reward factor in the music business, because in terms of how musicians and creatives in general are being taught and molded to believe about their successes, they're being shown metrics. We're seeing the amount of likes and the amount of streams and the amount of maybe even money and tickets sold. Mm-hmm. And the hard part there is that if we only work off of metrics, then we're not getting to enjoy the journey. We're always trying to strive to get to the finish line. And so for me, I realized pretty early in my career that I need to enjoy the ride as well as look to meet and exceed goals. And so it was really important for me to shift my own messaging in general with my branding and the work that I do, and really start pouring into enjoying the ride as well. Because, if you're only focused on the end result, then you're not really getting to live in the moment. And that's really difficult. And I think that with that said, you find yourself just trying to cope, just trying to even sometimes self-medicate, which is very popular in creative spaces. Mm-hmm. So we're not ever really paying attention to where we might be hurting from, and we're only looking to constantly be at 100, which we know as human beings, we can't always be at 100. It's not possible.
Well, you know what? That is very true. And you just hit on something, very key. And especially when you're talking about the music industry and now, metrics and likes. The industry is not what it used to be, whereas now everything is more digital. You're on a digital streaming platform. I can tell you, and you know this, to be true, sometimes even when you're pitching an artist to come on a certain platforms don't even want to take your artist because they're not at a certain level, with the likes, or, they're not as engaged on social media as they should be. Whereas, it can take the creative process right out of the artist. And whereas something that they, grew up on and nurturing and harvesting, now it doesn't feel like that anymore. It feels a lot like work,
Yeah, 100%. And I think even with what you just said, I love that, because if you can fall in love with the work and understand that, the work that you're doing is a reward in and of itself. There's too much overlooking the fact that if you have talent, that is a gift. That is something that you are to be rejoicing in. And a lot of times, anybody can sing. No, not anybody can sing. Anybody can make noise, but not everybody can actually sing. So Not everybody can sequence music and beats and arrange stuff. And so we famously come from a place where we're not giving ourselves nearly enough credit on a day-to-day basis, especially in music and creative spaces. So that's why it's so important to emphasize the small wins and victories along the way, because just being able to do this line of work is a win and a victory. And that's major. That's something that we emphasize a lot, not only with myself personally and one-on-one when I do consultations and work with people, but even with a platform that I work on, which I know that was going to come up, but I work with harddrive.com. I'm a product officer, and that platform is completely dedicated to pouring into the individual creator. We're not here for metrics. We're not here for, likes and follows. We're here to show the creator that they need to be proud of themselves already for taking this step and finding a way in the middle of a 9-to-5 burnout lifestyle and trying to keep up with trends and have, all this work and all this money and trying to keep up with the Joneses to a degree, having the right gear and being on all these, social media platforms. It is absolutely too much. And so for one human being, one individual, we try to show you how to do it to where you're not burning out and you can stay a human inside of that work.
Wait, okay, so that is key, to stay a human inside of all of this work. And as you said,
Yes.
there are, look, the indie artist game alone within the last, I'm not even going to go 5 years, Jhny. I'm going the last 3 years. Let's just talk about the last 3 years for indie artists. That is taken off that's on another platform itself. Whereas to the point where the industry, they have to change the rules now. Because as you said, now being in the digital world, more streaming. Okay. So it's not going to be like, how many rotations are you getting on, radio or what have you? Who's streaming? Okay. How many streams? How many downloads? How many, how much of this, how much of that? Where, as I said before, you're taking away the creative process from the artist and you're making it more work now. Now, it's more corporate now because it's just numbers driven. And that's why you do have a lot of artists, as you said, man, like the pressure to keep up, We're not even going to just say sing, but just the pressure to keep up. Let's just start there, because image, you've been in this game a long time. You know how branding and image works, okay? We know certain artists out here, I'm not going to say a lot, but we know certain artists out here who are not as talented or don't even have a tenth of a talent than some of these indie artists out here, but they're assigned to this machine, and this machine is, like it's making them do things that they didn't even know they could do, which they can't do, but this machine is telling them that they can do, So
and that's comparable to getting on a treadmill when you've never ran a day in your life and being told to run at 19 miles an hour. It's not feasible, it's not healthy, it's not. And ultimately, and you'll hear creators famously get into this bone to pick when it comes to the machine, is that you feel taken advantage of when you don't know enough about the business, when you have the talent, and then they show you how they can capitalize on it. And then you say, I don't want you here anymore. I'm going to make money on my own. And then they say, that's fine. If they're even to the point where they're willing to let you go, you see artists and bands and creators not be able to replicate that success any longer because now they do not have that machine. They can't run humanly as fast as the treadmill. And that's why we have to educate so that, you'll see me advocate so much for independent artists, but at the same time, I'm very aware that there's situations that work fine with a major label injection. That can work for some people, but you have to know what you're getting into. You can't be upset once the 5 years have gone by and they won't let you out and they're taking 80-90% of what they created. You can't be mad at that. You gotta try to educate yourself at least enough to know what car you're getting in when they come pick you up.
Now, let me ask, in your opinion, is that where you see a lot of, like, especially independent artists fail, like when it comes to this business? Because look, I was talking to someone else, earlier about this. If you're going to a major label these days, because you can be an indie artist and still enjoy fruits of labor that, sign people to like major labels enjoy as well. You're going to have to work a little bit harder, but you too can enjoy those fruits of labor. But if you're an indie artist and you're going to a major label, either you're looking to be rich real quick, which that comes with, all types of like, obligations or what have you, that If your mental health was already shaky, it's going to be even more, man, it's going to be shaken to its core by the time you're done with that label. Okay. And I want to talk about something, you know, young artists who get into the music industry. And, you know, let's just say mom and dad, they're, you know, they become their manager because they can't afford another manager or what have you. But mom and dad may not have the musical know-how and to know how this industry is ran. And you go from, okay, not only are we making the artist, you know, mentally unstable, we're driving a whole family mentally unstable. Like, talk about that for a second, and I want to get into harddrive.com right after that.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you know, in any situation, you don't ever just dive in head first and not have the pull end up catching everybody else around you. Because, you know, even in terms of working in and around the back end of the industry, you still get a lot of that kind of runoff attention. And we were discussing this with my wife earlier today, you know, the amount of attention that comes with being a pro ball player or being in the music industry or being in the entertainment industry. You know, what we used to see, and I don't even mean we, I mean, you know, our generations before us had very specific sets of stars because there were limited sources of stardom. You weren't going to be put on mass media until you could get to where someone wanted to put you on television or radio or in a movie. Those were the only three ways to be noticed, to be seen, unless you were constantly live at some major venue. And that might drive a few hundreds of thousands of people to eventually have seen you. But now we have these TV screens and movie screens in our pocket. And now you can go from TikTok to YouTube to Snapchat to Instagram to everywhere else and be seen and quickly become recognized from just being consistent. Even you don't even have to have, you know, a stupid human trick or something like that. Like you could just have you kick a soccer ball into a pyramid of cans every day. And if you did that, people would get to know you. They would say, that's soccer ball kicks cans guy. And so, you know, that's really what it is. And so you're beating people over the head with who you are. They get to know you. You become entrenched in this. And so there's really very little way to optimize that to where only you are going to be affected by that. Especially like we said, if there's a machine involved, they're going to take you for everything that they can get. And they're going to need everyone that is closest to you. You will all feel and see what those effects are. And we've seen everything from momagers to very sketchy situations in families with the business when it comes to people's estates, money, you know, all these different things. And there's so many angles in which this can get really gross really fast. And that's just another part of it that, you know, most people think I can handle it. I will become this person. I will be this person, and I can get sick from people being so enamored to see me that I'll get over it. I'll be okay. But then they're not thinking about how this affects their best friend or their brother and sister or their mom. And that goes the same even into mental health. And mental health never really only affects one person. It affects everyone around them. So, you know, it goes hand in hand. You see this depression, you see this anxiety, you see this self-medication, you see this escapism. You know, it's a lot. It's a lot to handle. It's a lot to deal with. So I think I really try to maybe not de-glamorize the music industry, but I try to humanize it as best I can so that people can see themselves in it in the way that they could see themselves being maybe a small business owner or being, you know, an electrician or a high-paid tradesperson. Because if you can compare it to that, then you can tell yourself how far, how big, how wide you want your net to go. And then you'll follow the steps that it takes to do that. But if you just look at it like, well, I'm swinging for the fences and here comes, you know, that limousine to pick you up, then you're just willing to say yes to almost anything. And that can really be where you lose yourself.
So speaking of which, I just want to make this point real quick. I mean, for those who may not know, for those who do know, but there's an artist, Anita Baker, you know, man, great R&B artist, ballad, this, that, what have you, came up in the late 80s, early 90s. Wonderful music. Is in court right now fighting for her masters. Okay. All right. So you have to think about like the intellectual property side of these things, you know, like you created all of these things out of your own like mind and memory and, you know, will or what have you. And then at the end of the day, if you're not like savvy enough to like really do, you know, your homework or what have you, or put yourself or surround yourself with a good team, because that is very underrated sometimes. We don't really talk about, you know, man, having a good team behind you will make sure that, hey, you know what, even if you fall, you're not going to fall too far because you got a good team. So you have situations like this where you have artists who are in court and they've been in court for years trying to get intellectual property that they made, but now these companies own. And now these companies, they pass it down to their kids, and, you know, the kids, you know, please, if you thought the dad was bad, the kid's much worse.
Yeah, labels have deep pockets. Labels have time. That's one thing that most creators I encounter. I feel like I'm running into a lot of trying to hurry the process. You know, I want to meet such and such and hurry up my process. I want to move forward. I want to be able to be on, you know, every radio station, every Spotify playlist, you know, all these things. But in reality, you're not taking into consideration that everything that has anything to do with anything worth having, it's all going to take work. And if it's not your work, it's someone else's. I mean, you know, if you don't know how to mix and master, you're going to send it to someone that knows what they're doing, and it's going to cost you money because it's cost them time and experience to get that good. So, you know, you're going to have one or the other. You either have time or you have money. And when most artists come, you know, trying to ask questions and see what they can do for themselves, they're faced with the really harsh reality that it costs not just $100, $200, $1,000. It costs a lot of money to be everywhere at once, to be as effective as a label, to be, you know, all over the place like the way you would like. It's so much money. And so that's just one of those, you know, dirty little secrets in the music industry, is that, yeah, it costs a lot of money. And you know what? Social media has played a great equalizer in all of this, because social media, you may not have a lot of money, but you might have enough money and a lot of time, and you mix those two together and you may be able to be seen and heard more than some label acts, because some label acts have very small budgets and they're like, yeah, we'll throw a couple dollars at this, and if it doesn't stick, no big deal. So here comes, you know, random person from Wisconsin with, you know, this song, and they put it, you know, into a viral meme in TikTok, and then they put some advertising on Spotify. Now, oh, I heard this on TikTok, but now it's on the Spotify playlist. Oh, and then someone comes in and says, hey, I got a couple more dollars, let's put it on the radio. And then now you have this, you know, multiplier effect of where social media played the great equalizer for that artist. So maybe you didn't let in the sharks, maybe you just let in, you know, one predatorial fish that might be there to help, you know. And so it's just that there's so much that goes into it, that when you don't know, someone will capitalize on what you don't know. And that's always going to be the case in every industry, but especially creative ones.
Okay. Hey, there it is. Jhny Wzdm. He just gave it to you. All right. Someone's always going to capitalize on what it is you don't know, especially when you don't know. And it's not your fault that you don't know.
Exactly.
It is what it is. And, you know, so hopefully, as I said before, having the right team behind you can get you caught up fast. And when you find yourself in this situation again, you know how to not get jerked. Okay, because that's what's going to happen. You're going to get jerked.
That's exactly what it is. Exactly. Without painting it up, you know, you do get jerked, and
you get jerked.
It's really tough. It's really tough. Not only, and I'll give an example without dropping names. I have an artist who has a really well-established following, and then because of the lack of knowledge on what to do with the following, you know, there's a need for work, there's an opening for work, but then there's also a lot of distrust because there was already some kind of push somewhere, and somebody didn't know how to communicate, you know, the end goals and the end results with this person. So now there's a sense of distrust, like, well, I'm glad you know what we can do together, but what's in it for you kind of thing. And so you could be coming from the best place possible and wanting to help, but they've already encountered, and this is something that I see all the time, is like musicians who have been jaded even slightly by some small part of the business, they'll be turned off to the whole business. They'll just dive headfirst into their craft and become amazing pianists or soloists or singers or violinists or something, but then they just leave the business completely alone because they've been, cut by the industry at some point. But this business does not leave you without your bumps, bruises, and cuts, and you just gotta find a way to push through that and find what you want to see in it. You really have to just let go of what's not beneficial to you and look for how you can connect with fans. Another music coach that I know recently told me and put up on their TikTok, they're like, you want to make it in this business, you need fans. And I couldn't agree more. I thought that was amazing, because that again, we're talking about great equalizers. You have fans, you have leverage, you have strength, and fans are where it's at. You have to be able to communicate with people.
That's true. Hey, look, the following will take you very far. And I mean, it speaks for itself, and
yeah.
I mean, that's just not in music. That's in all aspects of the industry, acting, entertainment, what have you. It will take you far. So now let's talk about this harddrive.com now. This platform, I was reading a little bit more on it, a little DIY almost in a sense for indie artists or what have you. So, man, tell us a little bit more about it.
Absolutely. This is one of the biggest ventures that I've ever become a partner on. I am product officer currently, which really I serve mainly as a community manager. I engage directly with artists, producers, agents, anybody that has anything to do with our platform. I really try to be an advocate for them, because famously, you'll have creatives say, I need an A&R, I need a manager, I need a producer, I need all these things. And so I pose them the question, what would you do if you had one? So I immediately turn around and say, look, I'll work for you. I'm your employee now. I work for you. Now what? What's the next step? What's the next move? And so, understanding that they are naive a lot to the business side, and they don't understand, what their intellectual properties can bud them and what they can really build for themselves. We try to empower and hand over the tools and resources, because Mickey Shiloh's vision, who is the CEO, I'm proud to say that we have a woman CEO. She completely came up with this vision of being able to give her Rolodex of high-level industry contacts that mix, master, create her artworks, make her visualizers, connect her to her distribution. She just said, I'm going to make this a website, and I want people to know that they can do this too. And I didn't even know what I was listening to when she told me. I just said, you know what, whatever this is, I'm all the way in. And so we just kind of ran with it. And since then, it's grown in the last going on 3 years now. She's been able to be the face of it and really kind of show what is possible through her own platform. And we've garnered over 2,500 artists that have come into contact with our platform now. And it's amazing. I mean, it's a subscription base. And I honestly know my entire life would be different had this platform been available at the time that I started my creative journey. And, that really motivates me, because now the impact, I genuinely was on the verge, and I tell this story all the time. I was on the verge of walking away from the business side of music for forever. I was really willing to go and have a studio and work out of a studio and work on very specific sets of work, just kind of being in the position that I was in. I was happy, mix mastering, being a label. We would have done that. That would have been fine. But then she brought this to me in a way where I realized we can impact hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people. And her vision is to be the music's Amazon. And so for me to, be a part of that, even in a small sliver of it, but then to become a community manager, a product officer, I can help, bring to life the vision that she has for this. And really, her at the helm, she's amazing. She's an amazing human being. And, just that energy, that belief system of wanting to help, it drew me completely in. The way that you would see an artist run at the chance to sign $1 million deal, I ran at the chance to be, anything having to do with hard drive, and blessed to be, a big part of it now. And so it just is a testament to where you are is no indicator to where you can be, because I never thought to myself at 35 years old I would be considered a music executive, and I would be in a, we can call it kind of a mixture tech and music play, and be seeing the world from where I consider the same way that I was in label meetings, at the top floor of every building we ever went into. I feel like we're at the top floor of the indie building, and like we're able to see where the problems and where the pinches are, and we can help. And so being able to help is like, it's everything that I never knew I needed. And that's really what motivates me to get up and do this every day.
Well, man, first and foremost, shout out to Nikki Shiloh and everyone over at harddrive.com for creating a, great platform, for indie artists, especially when it comes to intellectual property, like, first and foremost, I don't really know. I'm not going to say I think. I don't really know if people really, truly understand the power of intellectual property, which is your thoughts and your property that you pretty much, make into content or what have you, music, this, whatever, I don't really think people take into consideration, like, okay, the type of like career I can have for myself, the type of money I can make, and just all the things that could come from this. I tell independent artists all the time, why don't you try, man, there's plenty of independent movies out here. Why don't you try getting like your song in the movie? Even if it's for like maybe 10, 15 seconds, doesn't really matter. It still, at the end of the day, it still shows up on a credit.
Yeah.
It still shows that your song was in a movie or some type of project. But for whatever reason, that's just seen as taboo to some artists. I'm not gonna say all. Some, they're already on it. But for those who are really on the fence about their intellectual property, like, I don't know.
Yeah, no, they're programmed, Yeah, there's some programming that goes into that, because you feel like a sellout to a degree, right? Like if you don't get it the way you want, like you can hand somebody a red Mercedes, but if they wanted a black one, they're going to be mad that it's not black. So, that's just how it goes sometimes. And in terms of and I'll give you a case study, because I don't also want to generalize. That's not what I want to do. But, in terms of a case study, if I talk to, let's say 200 to 500 artists a year minimum, that's on a really low scale. But if I talk to easily half a thousand or maybe even 1,000 artists directly every year, then, the ones that understand the power of their intellectual property, I can't say that there's more than a handful every year. They don't exist. It's not a thing that they're very aware of, because of the lack of transparency in our industry. And so our industry is made from smoke and mirrors and, oh, don't look over here. I promise these numbers are real. They're not bots. I didn't buy followers. I didn't buy likes, I swear. And, it just really changes the perspective when you've seen what it takes for people to pay attention. I was actually put onto this by a mindset coach that I know, and she's amazing. And she basically said to me, you're so, to a degree, I feel like she painted me as anti and said, you're anti Grammys, you're anti this, you're anti that, because you don't believe in metrics and being measured to a degree, right? Because, everybody has art to share. And so I don't want to glamorize one art because it received an award when the other art may not have been in the running because they weren't a part of an academy. Like, it's just, for me, it was very, I guess it wasn't equal in my mind, right? Like I just left it alone because I was like, you know what, that's not really how I think. But she said, can you imagine how many more people you can reach if you were a Grammy award-winning producer, et cetera, et cetera? And I said, you know what, that actually makes a lot of sense. So we're in the business of reach. We're in the business of, I guess, height and visibility. And so when you're not visible, when you're not being heard, it's easy to basically mistreat your own property. You don't look at your music like it matters or like it means anything because nobody's hearing it, nobody cares about it, nobody's posting about it. There's not articles and all these things. And so when you get to really understand communications and media and how it all works, you really have to stop and say to yourself, what am I really here for? Because if you're here for impact, you can follow that road of impact and pull that thread and see where it leads and really, really find the impact that you're looking for. Because I had no idea, I'll be honest with you. The only reason I'm here now is because the impact I didn't know I needed. I didn't even know what it was called. I just knew that I wanted to help people. And so then realizing that it was impact and realizing that the business is not built for impact. The business is built on money. The business is built on how quickly can you get money out of something. So if you are, like you said earlier, if you're here completely for the money, you'll find a way. There will be a way for you to be hooked up with someone that sees the things the same the way you do, and you'll work together. That'll be something that happens. But when you're here to get your music heard, those lines of, no, I'm an artist, I'm not supposed to be in sync and in TV and film, those lines all start to get blurred because you say, you know what, by any means necessary will I have this music heard, and my music carries some type of message. And you really have to find that flag that you're trying to plant, because if you're not out with the message, if you're not trying to say something to a large group of people and find out who they are and how they need to hear it, then it's going to be a very, very uphill battle to find that in yourself. And then from that point, try to catch up to the other side of the business itself and getting, the visibility and getting heard by however many people you're trying to aim at. So for me, I've really resolved to doing it. Even if it comes down to it, I will do it one by one. And believe me, there's no better feeling than being able to help someone at the core of where they are, at the core of their belief system, for them to believe I can make a living off of this. That it's life-changing for me every time it happens. It just bona fides what I do and why I do it.
I'm gonna go back to the 4 words I used at the beginning, ladies and gentlemen. Knowledgeable, entrepreneur, advocate, support. Okay, Jhny and I have never met each other except for today. All right. But these are the 4 words that I felt best describe the situation. And here it is, man. Everything we've been discussing, from the time we started up to now, deals with all 4 of those words, okay, on some degree. So if you're in this business or you're looking to get in, I suggest, man, now be knowledgeable, have the entrepreneur mindset, be an advocate, and have others around you be an advocate for you as well, but also have them be support for you when you need it. So, man, there it is. Now, I want to talk about this book you have, okay? Now, you have a book. You are the author of a book, EQ Yourself, and it's adjusting your approach to the music business. Now, we didn't set up here and we've talked a little bit, but tell me a little bit about this book you have.
That book is fully a catharsis from my experience throughout the music business. Having started from, my most exciting job was running food, and I was the Postmate before Postmates. I was going to get, it didn't matter if it was blunt wraps, like I was cool, I was getting drinks. I don't want to name drop, but I had a lot of fun just going and getting whatever people needed to get, into their space to do what they had to do. And in that work, I'm blessed to say that I learned so much about the creative because I was so involved with the creative. I wanted to be a producer. I became a producer. I was a songwriter. I am a songwriter. All these visions that I had that were just coming to fruition based on just the resolve that it took to get there. I started to realize that, there were ceilings, there were glass ceilings all around me where, if I worked for a producer and I saw that he had somebody that he answered to and the engineer answered to someone, I answered to someone, the writer and the artist all answered to someone. So I started to realize, that this business is fully committed to teamwork. And so with that said, it really built me into realizing where I could go and how I could get to the top, even if it was my own hill with no one at the bottom. I knew I could get to the top of my own hill. And so I think that that's really at the same time kind of converging with life paths with Nikki, just kind of crossing that bridge really and saying, I'm ready to go out and be completely by myself. I don't know what it's going to be. I don't know what's on the other side. I'm not necessarily scared. I think there was a sense of nervousness just because anytime that you're starting a business or jumping out on a limb, you know, you don't know if it's going to hold. It might give and you might fall, and that's okay. But really just being fully confident in what was about to happen and realizing I'm stepping out from, you know, going through the rungs of, okay, if I go through these 5 or 6 jobs, I'm going to get to be an executive. And what does that even mean? As an executive, what do I want to accomplish? You know, I had to answer all these questions on the way. And so finally, when I made that resolve and that change, I stepped into this place in my life and place in my career. I stepped into it with full confidence. And at that point, I realized I got to leave breadcrumbs for people behind me. If there ever is anybody that comes up and tries to, you know, find their way through something like this, it doesn't have to be the music industry. It's very specific to the music industry, but it's really more of a mindset shift that has to happen. And so that mindset is so much more about creating your 4 walls of reality versus accepting what's in front of you and saying, well, I have to play this game. It's like if somebody shows up to me and says, well, clearly I have to have tattoos all over my face and I have to do a lot of drugs to become successful in music, I would immediately turn around and say that's not true, you know, and they wouldn't believe me. They'd say, no, clearly this is how it's done and I've seen it and this is why it works. But I would say, no, you don't have to play that game. And even if you play that game, you don't have to play by those rules. And so knowing that you create the reality that you live in, I think that that's really where that book came from, is knowing, you know, I want to show others that you can create the career that you want to live in and work in. And this is right at the same time that we're splintering into going deep into building harddrive.com. This was simultaneous. This was like something that somehow came together, and I took what I could from my experiences, but also didn't want to paint them with some, you know, jaded perspective. I just gave the most boiled down concentrate of what was going to help somebody and showing them. You know, I started with a really weird 16-track recorder back in the day by Yamaha. I went through going to school. I paid for school when I didn't have any money to my name and just found a way. And so coming out of school and never having touched, that's really kind of the crux of the book, is that, you know, I never got to touch a recording console with all the different channels. I wanted to be Dre, I wanted to be Timberland, I wanted to feel what it was like to control the volume and do all of that. And the fact that I got out of school and they didn't put me in that environment, it was such a big letdown that I realized I can put myself in that environment now. And that schooling only got me the merit to get into being basically an intern or a runner. And so I took every opportunity completely blindly every single day, from being a runner to then going and learning engineering and audio manipulation, sound design, and all these things. And I realized you could really start from nothing and make it in this business if you're willing to put in that work. And that's where the book was born. You know, it was about really leaving behind those breadcrumbs to give people that hope, to give people that sense that I knew no one, I had no resources, I had no business in the music business, which is the truth. And so to come from that place and get to here where I get to make an impact on musicians every day, that's a very long, large leap of faith. And I'm no different than anybody else. I was just willing to do the work. When I had gotten off of another job throwing away trash, I went and threw away trash at the studio. And that's really what it came down to, is I was just willing.
And that's what it is at the end of the day. You know, who wants it more? How far in do you really want to go? Are you just looking at it from this aspect, like, hey, you know what, the lights look nice, you know, at this time of night? Or are you really looking at it from the aspect of, man, if I design the house to look this way, if I ever turn on these lights, man, at any given time, the house will look like spectacular at any given time because it's set up the way I want it to be set up, you know?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I think same way, if you ever see a picture online of a clean studio and it looks beautiful, it almost never looks like that. So that picture is on the back of someone's sweat and hard work, because they cleaned that place up. That place gets beat up. There's plates, there's roaches, there's all kinds of stuff all over the place. And there's no secret there. But I mean, yeah, it all comes down to, like you said, being able to build the vision of what it is that you want to see and live in and walk into. I remember that was something from Aldo, the owner of the studio, that let me work there. He's like, I just want to keep this place clean and keep it ready to work at all times. And I took that to heart. Anywhere I go in now, it doesn't matter what studio, even at my home studio, I'm throwing away trash, I'm cleaning it up, I'm making sure that, at least it smells decent, and we're ready to work at any time, because you never know when that opportunity comes, and you'd rather you stay ready, you don't got to get ready.
Man, principles. All right, that's what it sounds like, man. Like, once you already have them established, it really doesn't matter. And as you said, stay ready so you don't have to get ready. That's what it is. Look here, man, Jhny, look, I've enjoyed this talk. Seriously, like, this has been like very knowledgeable, like very eye-opening. And for all of you out there listening, I hope you all have gained some wisdom from Jhny Wzdm, because that's what he's been dropping since he's been, on the show, okay? So if people want to get in contact with you, or just find out anything, or just some tips or what have you, how can people get in contact with Jhny Wzdm?
Currently, my Instagram DMs are open. That would be JHNY WZDM on Instagram. So it's spelled very short, the same as the platform. The platform is hrdrv.com. And I encourage artists, to reach out. I do consultations through harddrive.com. I also do personal consultations. But I'm really here to just delve out this information as best as I can. I'm actually always on Clubhouse. Every Tuesday we do 11:30 a.m. PST to 12:30 p.m. PST. We do a room based on super fans and how to develop and grow your fan base for super fans, so that you can basically make a living as best you can off the music industry. And so, that's something that we do with Katie Zaccardi and Isabella Bedoya, who runs Fame Hackers. So I won't overload with all of these, kind of cross promotion stuff, but like, I just really roll with innovators in the music space. Anything that I can do, anything that I can get the word out about innovation in the music space and independence overall, because, you need to have something to believe in. You need to be able to believe that you didn't just go to Guitar Center and get a mic and an interface and you're just going to be one of everybody else. Like, no, you have to believe that you can get on the court and you can ball with LeBron. Like, why not? You have to have that resolve, and there's going to be maybe 1 in 1,000, 1 in 100,000, 1 in a million, but there are going to be people that hear this and say, I'm willing to give it a shot. And that's ultimately what it's about. I just want to inspire and give people the good energy and the mental health and the mental state to believe in themselves enough to follow what is rewarding, which is the work, and leave alone all of the kind of misconceptions and the myths and the, back to the self-medicating. I don't want people to just smoke and believe they're Superman. They need to have something to run on outside of that. And it's so common, especially in music, how I see it. People come to me all the time and just have a blind faith about it. And I'm inviting them, well, instead of that, meet that with some work ethic, and maybe, you can start putting blocks one in front of the other and start walking down that road.
Man, work ethic. That's all we're saying. Just have some, like, you can have whatever belief you have, as long as it's with work ethic. If you don't have the work ethic, then yes, everything will always be in the negative or the red or what have you. But if you're constantly working, even if, in your mind, it seems as if you're in the red, you're really not, because someone is paying attention. Yep. Someone's always
all mindset.
It's all about the mindset. Okay. Jhny Wzdm, before you get out of here now, okay, I've come to the very last question of my show, the question that my show is known for, so I have to ask. Mr. Jhny Wzdm, what is the one word that best describes you and why?
I would have to say resilient, because it has been, kind of a surprise at every corner. And very easily you could be discouraged by the things that you see, whether in your personal life or in your career. Mm-hmm. And instead of, shying away from those adversities, I do everything I can to lean into the fire and look at where it's starting and what I can do to put it out. Because if you're not willing to look at the problem and try and problem solve and be there for yourself and be resilient to every time, back to the mindset, like if you are presented with issues or if you're not embraced your first time out, then you might get off the court and never come back. And that's just kind of the name of the game. But if you can see, okay, right now I'm not a starter, but I can get there. And then you get to the starting bench and you're like, okay, now I can go out and I can try and outdo my last game. And it's really just coming down to it's you against you. So when you can boil it down to that, resiliency has been literally my entire backbone throughout this entire journey in my career. I've just had to be resilient to want to be here. And here I am, I wake up. And again, the fact that I get to make this impact with creators on a daily basis is just, it's unmatched. It's an unmatched feeling.
Well, I used the word earlier, which is knowledgeable, but I'm going to go with teacher. And the reason why I'm going to go with teacher, to go back to being knowledgeable, which ties into you being resilient. You had to go through everything you went through first and foremost in order to gain the knowledge that you have now, in order to display, that to, those on the hard drive platform, these young artists, every and any aspect of the music industry you are into informing the artist about. That comes with, man, hey, you know what? I had to learn, teachers have to learn in order to, give off, hey, this is, or these are some of the things you should be doing, or this is the way you should apply this. You have to be knowledgeable of it. In order to be knowledgeable of it, and, display it, you have to teach. So those are my words for you. And look, like I said, I honestly, wholeheartedly thank you for coming on my platform and really, man, just dropping jewels, blessing us with wisdom.
It's been an absolute pleasure. I come back in a heartbeat. I appreciate you so much. And thank you so much for being a good word of reason for anybody out there listening. It's not every day you run into someone that's willing to take a platform that they're building and share something that can help them, enable them, make them better, and just give them a reason to persevere sometimes. So you're a voice of encouragement that I can tell, to your audience. And I think that's amazing. I appreciate you for having me.
No problem at all. No problem at all. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been Word with Ty Brownlow. I have been your host, Ty Brownlow. Remember, no one is worthless. No story is worthless. You can follow me on all social media platforms at Word with Ty Brownlow, or you could just go to my website, tybrownlow.com, get this wonderful interview, plus other great interviews. Jhny Wzdm, thank you for being a guest. We out, people. Peace.